So I want you to know about those two events. I also want you to know that on October 1st, we're going to be revealing some clips, some outtakes, some stories behind the television series that's sweeping the nation, or at least certain parts of the KCPT audience. Meet the Past, which a few of you may have been to some of these. Meet the Past is the show where I interview historical reenactors, historical characters such as Jesse James, Walt Disney, Annie Chambers, Kansas City's Madam, Langston Hughes, Charlie Parker, etc. And KCPT will start airing those on Thursday, October 8th at 8:30 p.m., I think. It's a 13-part series, but we're going to do, on this stage, we're going to do some outtakes and some stories behind the stories, and encourage you to come on October 1st to that. Okay, enough of the future programs. You want to hear Jeff Benedict. And to introduce Jeff Benedict, we've got Dave Rowland of the Show Me Institute. Now, the Show Me Institute is a libertarian public policy, state public policy think tank, headquartered at the moment in Clayton, soon to be in the city of St. Louis, I believe. And I have an involvement with it. I have to disclose. I'm the chairman of the board, actually. I helped found it. And we hire the best economists we can find and other public policy analysts like Dave to do studies of problems in the state of Missouri from a libertarian free market point of view, market-based solutions we like to talk about. So school choice has been a big issue for us. Low, fair, equal tax burden on Missourians is an issue, but eminent domain has become an issue for us. And Dave is a good guy to talk about this because after graduating from Abilene Christian University and getting his law degree in MTS from Vanderbilt, he's gone to work for, among others, the Institute for Justice, where he worked on issues such as eminent domain and Freedom Forum's First Amendment Center, for which he's written a number of essays. He's been quoted in the Wall Street Journal and presented expert testimony about school choice in front of several state legislators, including his report, School Choice in the North Carolina Constitution, which was published in 2006. And he's a policy analyst for the Show Me Institute in St. Louis today, and doing a great job of that. So Dave, would you introduce Jeff? Thank you.
Thank you, Crosby. It is my great pleasure to introduce tonight Mr. Jeff Benedict. Jeff is one of America's top investigative journalists. He is the author of 7 critically acclaimed books, including The Mormon Way of Doing Business, Out of Bounds, Pros and Cons, and Without Reservation. His articles have been published in Sports Illustrated, the LA Times, and the New York Times. And tonight he's here to talk about a fantastic book about a case near and dear to my heart, Kelo versus the City of New London. I think he did a wonderful job, and I hope that you all will give him a big Missouri welcome. Mr. Jeff Benedict.
Good evening, everyone. It's really great to be here, and I'm thankful to the library for bringing me. As a writer, I have a pretty personal affection for libraries. I love the buildings. I love what they promote, and I'm always glad to have the opportunity to visit them and to be with people who like to read books. I think that what I do is the greatest job in America. I'm very grateful to be a writer, and I'm grateful to do nonfiction work. This story, Little Pink House, is a little personal to me because I was born in New London, where this story takes place, and I learned about it the way a lot of people learned about it. I read about it in the news. And when I first read about it, it was just a simple story in our local paper. I lived in the next town over at that time, and it seemed like another typical dispute between homeowners and local government officials. This goes on all over America all the time. I didn't think much of it. It stayed in the news for quite a while as the fight escalated, and I still didn't think much of it. And then eventually a court case started. It got more interesting, and this ends up dragging on for years. And then one day I read that the United States Supreme Court had decided to select this case for review. And it was that day that I thought to myself, wow, this isn't a local story anymore. And this actually could be a book now, because no matter what the Supreme Court decides, it's going to affect the whole country. It's going to be precedent setting. It's going to be important. And that's when I wanted to do it. But I was busy on another project. And so the case went to the Supreme Court. It was argued. It was decided. It was incredibly controversial. I watched the reaction from very close to home, literally next door, and saw how volatile it was and how emotional it was and how passionate it was. And by then, I was finishing up with this project, and I was clear to do something. And my fear was that there had been other writers who'd covered this case for a long time, who would be in a position to be well underway on a book, and I thought I might be too late. And one day I got in my car and I drove to Susette Kelo's little pink house. And by that time, the Supreme Court decision was well decided, and it was decided, as you all know, 5-4, that the city had the right to evict these people and condemn their homes and use the power of eminent domain to take property and do something else with it. But the plaintiffs in the lawsuit were still in their houses, even though the court had said many months earlier that they had to get out. And the city wanted them out, and the state wanted them out. They were still there. And it was at that moment that I got in my car and drove to Suzette's house, and I knocked on the front door of this famous house that had been now in the national news. And I had prepared a very well thought out pitch, because I knew I was going to have to deliver this on her doorstep, and I'm either going to get in or I'm not. And if I don't get in and I don't get Susette, I don't get to do the book. It's really that simple. You can't do this book without Kelo. And she came to the door, and she opened it, and I started in, and I said, it's easy to remember what I said because I didn't get too far. I said, hi, my name is Jeff Benedict, and I'm a writer, and I would like to. I got about that far, and she said, I know who you are. And I had never been talked to like that before by someone that I wanted to interview. And so I paused, and then she said, what took you so long? And I thought, I'm in. And I thought, this is great. And she opened the door, and I went in the house. And it was the first time I saw the house from the inside. And she invited me to sit down at her kitchen table. I would soon learn that that kitchen table was an important table in this story. It's where so many of these meetings happened over the course of 6 or 7 years of fighting and litigation. And now I was sitting at that table. And I typically record when I interview people for books, but this wasn't that kind of interview. This was an interview where I'm trying to find out, you know, first of all, will this person cooperate with me? And then second of all, does she have what it takes to deliver me to the finish line as a writer? I mean, what do I mean by that? You know, what I mean is, does she have a good memory? Is she honest? Does she keep a journal or a diary? And if she does, will she let me read it? Is she a saver? Does she have documents and pictures and stuff like that? And would she turn them over to me? Is she a good storyteller? You know, is she the kind of person when you ask her a question, she goes, yeah? Or is she the kind of person who will tell you something? And so for 3 hours, I sat there that day asking her all kinds of questions which were designed to find that out. And at the end of 3 hours, I was convinced she had it. She had the story. She had what I need. She would be a great character to build a book around. And so then the question was, I said, you know, you let me in your house here today. The question now is, will you let me in your life? Because for me to do what I want to do, I need to really crawl inside your life for the next couple of years. And I'm going to ask you things that you've probably never been asked, that most people would probably never want to answer. And I said, I don't need to write all that information, but I need to know it all. And she said yes. And I think it was very similar to when she said yes to the Institute for Justice the first time that Scott Bullock interviewed her and asked her if she'd be the lead plaintiff, and explained that she wasn't going to have to pay for their excellent law firm and legal services, but instead of money, what they were going to need is for her to be a spokesman and a leader in something more than just a piece of litigation.